Hi, I'm Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Mostly Paper Crafts. This week, I'm going to be sharing some projects that I made using the December 2020 My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts. It's such a fun kit with beautiful stamps and dies, and I was really excited about the things I was able to make with it. I hope that my creations will motivate and inspire you to create your own projects. So let's take a look at the kit and all the stuff that I made. Here are the dies that came in this kit. The hope with the outline, the circle frame with the clouds, the single cloud. The Phoenix was an add-on for this kit. It's actually the only add-on that I purchased this month. And here is the stamp set. So mostly it's these layering cloud stamps, a couple of suns, and a few nice sentiments. When my goal is to make a bunch of cards, the first thing I like to do is stamp out my images. This big layering sky scene is the main image in this kit, and I was a bit intimidated trying to pick which colors I wanted to use and which colors to put on which layers, so I just did some experimenting. I wasn't sure that all of these would end up on a card, but at least I have some options to start with. So keeping things simple on this first card, I used that triple layering stamp for my clouds. I used this reactive ink palette from a previous My Monthly Hero Kit. This is the Summer Twilight palette. And you can see there the orange and the lavender and the light blue. I used the birds, which I forgot to show you when I showed you the stamp set. And then I embossed my sentiment. I put a nice frame border around it. It's on a bright pink card base. Kept it really simple for this card. Now, same sort of design, but stepping it up. This time I used that frame with the clouds, as well as the single cloud die that came in the kit. I cut that out of a shiny glitter paper, created a border with that, and then this layer, of course, is vellum, so you can still see that sky underneath, but it's a lot fainter, and then this has a nice pearlescent look to it. So these two cards are pretty similar, but this one is definitely taken up a notch. Continuing on with that beautiful layered background, I used the same stamp pad for this, but this time I added the sun, and I used the yellow embossing powder that came in the kit. It does have glitter in it, so it's nice and shiny. I thought it needed more glitter on this card, so I matted it on this white glitter frame, and I put my sentiment strip on more glitter, so very shiny for my third card, using that same background. For my fourth card, I used a different stamp pad from a My Monthly Hero Kit. This is a reactive ombre winter sky, and that gave this sky layer here a nice gradient. I used the same sun stamp that I used here just for these little bits of sun rays that are showing through, and of course I used the circle frame die that cuts out the clouds and kept that circle, ink blended it to create a sun, and had cut that out of a really shiny glitter paper. Added a couple of those single clouds. I did multiple layers of those, so all of these extra clouds that you're seeing there have multiple layers, so they have some extra dimension on the card. Even though I keep using that same stamp, I like some variety in my cards. So this one is a circular card, and what I did is I used that circle frame with the clouds, and then I used a separate circle die to cut that out. Added a couple of the single clouds. All of that's in glitter, of course. I used my circle dies to create a frame and to create this card base. So when you open it up, I cut off the bottom here so that it will stand and won't roll away. You saw in the beginning that I'd stamped out a bunch of these cloudy backgrounds, so I'm continuing to use those here, and I wanted to create some bookmarks. So this one is that pretty scene using this same stamp pad, but I used it this way this time to get those darker shades. And the other inks that I used here are inks from previous kits. I'll show those in just a moment. And I did use a sentiment here from a Hero Arts stamp set. This is one of their anniversary stamps where they put out some old designs and put them on the photopolymer. I've got the birds there, and then a nice ribbon, and then some orange glitter paper from my stash. If you've been ordering the My Monthly Hero kits for a while, you probably have a bunch of these small ink cubes like I do. So some of the colors that I used Creamsicle, Taffy, I think I used Splash, probably this Blue Hawaii, definitely used this Reactive Early Dawn, and this Morning Mist color over here. I can't remember all of the colors that I used, but all of the inks that I used on those backgrounds came from these small ink cubes, and these all came in previous kits. All of the cards I've shown you so far were using those original backgrounds I stamped out, and I only had one left. It's this embossed sun here, and originally it was just on white cardstock. I realized I could ink blend right over that, cut it out with a circle die, and then I just had this half circle sun and thought, what am I going to do with this? Then I got the idea to do a day and night card. So I used this stamp from Hero Arts. This is one of their bold prints. It's a rubber cling stamp, and use that to create the bottom half of this circle. I picked this sentiment off of the same stamp set that I showed you a moment ago. This one has some of those vintage sentiments and images from Hero Arts. And we have Cherish Yesterday, Live for Today, Dream of Tomorrow. This is not my normal color palette. I did have to put a white insert inside so that there's a place to write, but I was really pleased with how this came out in the end, even though it's a lot different than the normal cards that I make. The card I'm going to show you next is one of my very favorites from this week. So I have a couple of personal challenges when I'm making these cards. One is to use any of the add-ons that I buy, and another is to incorporate an element from another kit. So the front, I use that circle die with the clouds, put a layer of vellum behind it, and when you open that up, we have this awesome Phoenix, which was the add-on that I bought. And then the background is ink blended using this stencil. And this came in the Australian themed My Monthly Hero kit from last year. I'm not really sure what month it was. Here my vellum is cut out with that same circle die I've used a few times already. And it's actually thick enough that I was able to just put my glue all the way around and you really can't see it. So I was very happy that I was able to hide my adhesive there. Then on the inside, I have my sentiment Rise Up, and another one of my challenges is to use my Scan and Cut. So I designed this sentiment on my Scan and Cut it out of some glitter paper, and we have Rise Up with the Phoenix and this peekaboo type window. I was very pleased with this card. I really like this Phoenix die. I actually did use this to create a Christmas present for a friend, and I wanted to recreate that gift for this video. So I started by using my Scan and Cut, and I designed this custom box so it would be exactly the right size. And I made an ornament. So this Phoenix ornament is made with a specialty metallic paper. That's from Spellbinders, actually. And then there's several layers of cardstock. And then on the back, I used a really thin felt. So these fancy die cuts are awesome on the front, but if you ever look at them on the back, it's not quite as pretty. So I had to come up with an option that would hide some of that roughness that comes on the back of the die cut, and I used this really thin felt. This was a piece of packaging material from something, I don't even remember where it came from, but I had it in my stash, and this was perfect. So you can't see any of that roughness, and then it gives this a nice finished look. I did use my crocodile and put an eyelid in there and a little hemp cord. I cut all of these strips of tissue paper by hand and ran them through my crimper to create my packaging. And I think that this ornament would make another fine gift for someone who needs a little inspiration. Like I said, I love that Phoenix die, so I couldn't resist making a shaker out of it. Now this shaker is meant for probably a teenage boy. This is definitely a color palette that I don't use very often, but I've got red holographic paper in the background, and then my sequins are red and silver, and there's also some silver beads in there. I'm not sure if a teenage boy would like this much glitter and sequins and holographic design, but I think it came out pretty cool, and I'm sure I can find someone to give it to that will appreciate it. I just wanted to show you a couple more things with that Phoenix die. Here I used a glittery black paper on the front, a sheet of foam in the middle, and then for the back I tried a sheet of velvet paper. Wow, this came out really nice. I was very happy with the texture and the detail on that velvet, and you can't even tell that this is the back of a die cut. So this is another really neat little ornament that I'll be happy to give as a gift. And then of course I wanted to try Shrinky Dinks. So here is the Phoenix cut out with Shrinky Dinks. I did punch a hole in this, and I thought originally this might make a cool earring. Well, this plastic is really sharp, and I am not putting this anywhere near my hair. It's definitely going to get stuck. But it might be an idea for you if you're looking for a tiny little Phoenix charm for a project. The last main element of the kit, of course, is this fancy hope die with its outline, and I'll show you the few projects that I created with that. First off, I have this hope card. I cut a shiny black and a mirror thin cardboard, piece those together, dry emboss this background to give it some texture, put a black stitched border around it. So it has a very industrial look. For my next hope card, I used that die as a stencil. So I cut out the hope from a piece of cardstock and ink blended through it. I wanted to keep this design really simple and mostly white. You can see here there are a few layers of that white cardstock that lead up to hope. It's almost like a tiny little staircase. And then I did go back with a black micron pen and loosely outlined around hope. And I think that this is very simple, but a nice design. My final project is using that hope die again. I created another bookmark. This is just 2 layers of paper. The first one, I used that hope die to cut out the letters, and then when I glued it to the backing here, I just needed to make sure that these couple pieces where you can see would be cut off by the sun ended up back in the right spot. I did use a die from Avery Elle to create this bookmark, just like this one, and you'll notice they're different sizes. Well, when I had stamped this background, it's only that wide, so I used the bookmark die to cut out this side, and then I scooted it down and was able to line it up so that it would create this shortened bookmark. But that's a nice trick for a lot of your dies. You can customize the size of your cutout just by cutting twice. Here's another look at the projects I created using this kit. It was a bit of a challenge to get all of them into the frame here, but we have a wide assortment of color palettes, and between the Phoenix, the Hope, that background die, and our sun, I feel like I was able to get my money's worth out of this kit now that I finally used it. I hope that you enjoyed my projects on this video and are feeling inspired and motivated to create some things of your own. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, and please connect with me on Instagram. I'm there at Mostly Paper Crafts, and I love to see your work just as much as I love to share mine. I hope that you have an amazing day, and go make something beautiful.